What would you do if you got reincarnated into a noble family in another world with some weird magical powers and a bunch of hot girls who always want to train with you and are ready to do anything you ask? Sounds like a dream, right? Well, in this story, our lucky loser ends up with exactly that, but he's a total idiot, even dumber than me, because I'm out here running a channel where people watch the videos but never hit that subscribe button. They just watch and vanish like ninjas. But hey, if this video gets 500 likes, I'll recap a manga with a super hot waifu next. One day, a man finds himself in complete darkness, confused about where he is or who he even is. A goddess appears, holding his hand, telling him he's been chosen by the gods and blessed with happiness. As he tries to make sense of it all, he opens his eyes to see people all around him, smiling and looking down. Slowly, it sinks in, he's been reincarnated. He's surprised, but at the same time, a bit excited about starting a new life as this boy. 7 years later, Leo is deep in thought when a voice interrupts him. He quickly apologizes to his butler Sebastian and wishes him a good morning. Sebastian informs him that the emperor will be arriving soon and that his father is waiting for him outside. Leo smiles, says goodbye, and heads off. Enjoying his new life, his old life is a blur, so he feels like he's genuinely starting fresh. He gets along well with his family and appreciates all the servants around their huge home. But the thing he loves most about his new life isn't just the people, it's something else entirely. Just then, a cart bumps into him and a young maid named Amelie screams out an apology, spilling tea on him. He reassures her not to worry, and she hurriedly tries to dry his clothes. With a flash of light, the tea disappears and Leo grins, thankful for the magic in this world. It's his favorite part of the new life. Outside the house, Leo meets his father, the Marquis d'York, who asks if he's nervous. Leo sighs, thinking it's only natural to be nervous about meeting the royal family. He wonders why he was chosen to go with the princess, thinking his older sister would have been a better choice. His father gets close, ready to give him an answer, but then just calls him a descendant of the great hero, like he does with all his kids. With a half smile, Dyer tells him he can even go out tomorrow. Just then, the arrival of Emperor Orton is announced. The carriage pulls up and a stern-looking man steps out. The Marquis kneels, greeting the Emperor and saying they've been expecting him. The Emperor, recalling the 3 years since they last met, asks if they're both doing well. There's a brief silence, filled only by the wind, before both men start laughing, wondering why they're being so formal when they've been close friends for so long. Suddenly, a small voice calls out, "Father!" It's Sherry, the Imperial Princess. She teasingly complains about him blocking the carriage's path, and Leo can't help but notice how cute she looks. Embarrassed, he quickly covers his face, and Sebastian notices his reaction. Orton introduces his daughter, and Dior greets her before calling for Leo. The boy steps forward and they exchange introductions. Leo's words come out awkwardly, making him wonder why he struggles with this kind of thing. Sherry looks at him with curiosity, and just as the moment feels a little weird, the boy's mother, Carla, enters the royal carriage with the Empress Ashley. Diork seems unaffected by it all. The royals are there for a twofold reason, the inspection and a little vacation at the hot springs. Leo is then told that he's to accompany Sherry in the carriage as she'll be in his care. Stunned by the unexpected task, he goes quiet and the silence lingers until he's alone with the princess. As they sit together, Leo wonders if it's really okay for him to be in such close company with her. Struggling for something to say, he finally blurts out a simple question, "How old are you?" It's a silly question considering they'd already talked about it, but she answers kindly and so does he. Sherry, suddenly putting her hands together and blushing, asks Leo to stop with the formal speech. She says it'll be much easier for them to be friends if they just drop the honorifics. Leo agrees with a smile, and before long they feel much more comfortable with each other. The princess giggles happily, pleased to have made a new friend. Curious, Leo asks what's wrong, but she quickly brushes it off and asks about his hobbies. He mentions reading and casually adds magic practice. Her eyes light up and she nearly jumps at him in excitement, impressed that he can already use magic. She slumps a little, feeling a little down because she wants to use magic too, but her mana's too low. Leo reassures her that it'll get better with training, but that it'll take time. Sherry brightens up again, eager to know more, and asks what his specialty magic is. Leo explains that it's a unique ability people are born with, one that can't be changed or adjusted. Leo's special ability is creation magic. The moment Sherry hears this, she starts calling him Master, completely in awe of his power. But after a second, she groans, realizing that calling him that makes them seem less like friends. Leo agrees, and they quickly drop the whole Master thing. Before long, they arrive at their destination and step out of the carriages. Leo gasps in amazement at the hot springs his grandfather personally built them. That said, he can't help but make fun of the name, Hero Hot Spring. It's kind of lame. Steam rises around him as he relaxes in the bath, wondering why his father and the others are taking so long. Just then, he freezes, realizing he's in the children's bath. Before he can react, a familiar voice speaks up behind him, admiring the view. He turns, and there stands Sherry, completely prepared for a bath. Panicked, he tells her to cover up, but she just tilts her head, confused. Isn't this how normal friends bathe? Leo stumbles over his words, then quickly runs off, saying he needs a moment alone. Rummaging through his belongings, he pulls out a magic stone and silently thanks the gods that he brought it. With a determined look, he decides to create something useful. A towel. Sherry, watching curiously, asks what he's doing, but he sternly tells her to stay put. She hums in thought, wondering what kind of bathing suit would suit her best. Something cute would be nice. Leo's hands glow with power, and soon, he nods in satisfaction at the finished product. Suddenly, Sherry finds herself wearing an adorable and appropriate outfit. Her eyes widen in surprise, while Leo sighs in relief. She asks if he made it with his magic, having never seen anything like it before. In fact, this is the first time he's ever done it in front of someone. They decide to keep it their little secret. Excited, they start playing around with magic, enjoying the hot springs. Meanwhile, in the men's bath, their fathers relax with cold drinks, making the most of the warm water. For Sherry, it's been a wonderful day. She got to leave the castle, made a new friend, and even saw his magic in action. Leo points out that she stopped speaking formally, which immediately makes her flustered. She groans, admitting that she had planned to impress him with her graceful speech. Leo chuckles and tells her she's cuter this way. Instantly, her face turns beet red. Embarrassed, she slowly floats away, clearly planning her escape. When Leo moves to follow, she quickly stops him, asking him to just stay put. Her expression makes it obvious he's said something wrong. So later, in the carriage ride back, he apologizes. Back at the manor, Leo flops onto his bed, letting out a deep sigh. It's been a long day. Even after everything that happened, Leo oddly doesn't feel sleepy. Realizing he forgot his daily training, he gets up and heads to his desk, thinking maybe tiring himself out will help. He focuses, and the magic stone on his desk starts glowing, lighting up the whole room. Pouring in more and more mana, he's suddenly interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Curious about who it could be, he opens it, only to find Sherry standing there. She looks a little embarrassed as she apologizes for disturbing him so late, explaining that she can't sleep. Leo can't help but chuckle, realizing they're dealing with the same problem. Letting her in, he watches as she gasps at the sheer number of books in his room. That's when it hits him. Maybe he shouldn't have invited her in so casually. Before he can say anything though, she notices the glowing stone on his desk and asks if it's a gemstone. He explains that it's actually a magic stone. It shines brighter the more mana is poured into it. Hearing that it's part of his training, she excitedly asks to try it too. Leo happily agrees and starts instructing her, telling her to move mana from inside her body into the stone. But Sherry quickly frowns. She has no idea how to do that. Leo falls silent, suddenly reminded that this isn't something she's ever done before. To help her get a feel for it, he asks her to lie down. Gently placing his hand over her abdomen, he begins moving the mana inside her. Her body tenses and her breathing grows unsteady. He asks if she can feel the small cluster of mana and warns that he's about to shift it. The moment he does, she shudders and suddenly cries out, saying it feels way too good. Leo panics, telling her to stop making such weird noises, but she just keeps going, yelling about how she can feel the mana moving inside. He awkwardly praises her for catching on so quickly, but she only gets louder, questioning whether this method is really necessary. By the time it's over, Sherry lies completely still, exhausted from the experience. Fast asleep in the middle of his bed, she looks peaceful, while Leo just stares, completely dumbfounded by how the night unfolded. As the sun rises, light spills into the room. Leo groans as he wakes up, feeling something warm on his head. A gentle voice greets him, "Good morning." His eyes snap open, and to his horror, he finds himself resting on Sherry's lap. He jumps up in shock, only to turn and see their parents standing in the doorway, smiling, watching them sneakily. Completely ignoring Leo's frantic protests, they start casually discussing the idea of the two becoming a real family. Sherry forms a heart shape with her hands and adds a playful wink, trying to charm Leo. He tilts his head, finding it cute, and asks if that's her special ability. She pouts, groaning that it's not working at all. Seeing her sulk, Leo reassures her that she'll improve if she sticks to her training. Eager to speed things up, she insists that he do the same thing he did last night. Unable to refuse, he places his hand over her abdomen again, guiding her mana. Once more, his room is filled with soft whimpers as she reacts to the strange sensation. The next morning, Diorc and the others set out with the Emperor to conduct a routine survey. Their destination is the Forest of Magic, located at the foot of a towering mountain. The children watch them leave, saying their goodbyes and praying for their safe return. Of course, with the adults away, there's only one thing left to do: go shopping! Leo, Sherry, and Sebastian set off toward town, excitement bubbling in their steps. After a while, they arrive at their destination. Leo's eyes sparkle with excitement, but Sherry stops in her tracks, stunned. The shop in front of them is far from what she expected. As they step inside, her shock only grows. Dim lighting, eerie shelves lined with strange items, and an overall unsettling atmosphere. "It's a reagent store," Sebastian explains calmly. Leo, on the other hand, looks absolutely thrilled. "It's like they made this shop just for me," he exclaims. Just then, a figure emerges from the shadows. A grumpy-looking man with tired eyes. "I heard some annoying screams," he mutters before shooting them an unimpressed look. "If you're not buying anything, get lost. This isn't a playground." Determined to stay, Leo quickly declares, "I'm a customer." The man scoffs, clearly thinking it's some kind of prank, but the moment his gaze lands on the crest of the Forster family embroidered on Leo's clothes, his expression shifts. He takes a closer look at the finely dressed boy and the dignified butler at his side. Hope flickers in the shopkeeper's eyes. Could this be the chance to finally pay off his bar tab? Forcing a friendly smile, he straightens up and asks how he can help. Leo, unfazed by the sudden change in attitude, excitedly requests to see all the rarest items. The shopkeeper doesn't waste a second, hurrying to prepare his best merchandise. Sherry watches the transformation in disbelief, but Sebastian simply hands her a cup of tea, as if nothing unusual is happening. With a glint of mischief, the shopkeeper presents a mysterious-looking bottle. He's confident that a rich young noble like Leo will buy anything that looks expensive, no matter the price. The shopkeeper watches as he carefully examines each item, almost like he has some kind of special ability to see their details. And that's exactly what he's doing, checking out descriptions of anything that catches his eye. Eventually, he stops at a piece of mithril ore, convinced it'd be perfect for practicing magic creation. Clearly enjoying himself, he takes it to the counter. The shopkeeper seems surprised by his choice, since it's just a basic item, but still compliments his good taste before naming the price. 50 gold coins. That amount makes the boy yell in shock. He digs through his bag only to find he has just 3 gold coins left, which is still a decent sum. Sebastian offers to cover the cost, but he refuses. Instead, the shopkeeper suggests a trade, the ore in exchange for the noble outfit he's wearing. The boy lights up at the deal, barely hiding his excitement. However, he places another item on the counter instead, catching the merchant off guard. The moment he sees the gem, his expression changes completely. The boy shrugs it off, saying it's just a normal stone, but the shopkeeper knows better. This is something rare, something a craftsman would pay a fortune for. Sebastian backs him up on this. Without hesitation, the merchant offers 100 gold coins for it, leaving the boy stunned. He was already prepared to give up his clothes, so the sudden offer feels excessive. His hesitation makes the merchant think he's unhappy with the price, so he doubles it, handing over 200 gold coins. Excitement fills his face as he praises the family's status while Sebastian stands proudly at the compliments. Then the conversation shifts. The merchant starts talking about people with no magical abilities, sharing a story he heard recently. As he repeatedly dismisses magic creation as useless, the room's atmosphere takes a sharp turn. Leo freezes. He never expected his skill to be considered something for the untalented. The man keeps going, but then flinches as a loud thud echoes through the store. Sebastian, eyes cold, slams his hand on the counter. Without another word, he thanks the merchant and turns to leave with the children. Later, in a back alley, Sherry grumbles about how shady the shopkeeper was from the start, but Leo stays quiet. He always felt sympathy for those without magic, but now he realizes the people at the estate were just being kind to him. That truth stings. Suddenly, Sebastian kneels before him, apologizing for allowing him to learn this harsh reality in such a way. Leo simply shrugs, saying it doesn't bother him. People who don't understand something will always see it as useless. What really matters is that everyone treated him with respect, even though they knew the truth. With that in mind, he decides to properly thank them once they're all together again. His words move the butler, while Sherry suddenly gets an idea. She turns to Leo and asks if he still has the stone. Then, with a mischievous grin, she tells him to use his creation magic in front of them. More than that, she orders Sebastian to keep whatever he sees a secret. The butler raises an eyebrow in confusion as Leo begins working on the mithril. Moments later, both of them stare in amazement as a stunning pendant forms in his hands, crafted from the very material he just bought. Sebastian, overwhelmed by its beauty, nearly tears up while admiring the flawless craftsmanship. Remembering his promise, he keeps his mouth shut about what just happened. Sherry eagerly puts on the pendant and twirls around. With a playful smile, she asks how she looks, but before she can react, Leo suddenly presses her against the wall, his gaze intense. Without hesitation, he showers her with bold compliments, as if something deep inside him had snapped. As if unable to control himself, he even asks her to be his bride, leaving her completely stunned. Sebastian quickly yanks him away, pleading for him to get a grip. Snapping back to reality, Leo looks horrified at his own behavior and immediately apologizes. He suspects the pendant is responsible. Apparently, it amplifies the wearer's natural magic, causing Sherry's charm to skyrocket beyond control. She simply laughs and praises him again. Later that night, at a dimly lit tavern, the shopkeeper leans against the counter, looking pleased with himself. He loudly announces that he's drinking to celebrate, then pulls out the magic stone with a smug grin. Proudly, he brags about scoring something priceless from the Lord. As he bickers over payment with the bartender, several men rise from their seats. Their faces hidden beneath masks and hoods, they approach the merchant, their voices low and serious. One of them asks what color the kid's hair was. The shopkeeper stiffens, his hands trembling as he recognizes the symbols on their cloaks. Meanwhile, deep within the Vector Empire's castle, the atmosphere is tense. Damien, the Special Forces commander, listens as his officer reports strange movements within the capital, whispers of shadowy figures stirring in the streets. Taking in the news, he nods and decides to increase security, especially with the Emperor currently away. Alone with his thoughts, he mutters a single name, and wonders what his true intentions are. Elsewhere, Diorc and his companions finally return from their expedition into the forest. As they're greeted back home, they're bombarded with questions about their journey. However, the two men simply laugh it off, cracking jokes instead of giving any real answers. The following day, Leo hands Sherry her pendant again, this time completely fixed and free from any unintended effects. He warns her that if she ever feels uncomfortable wearing it, she should take it off. But without hesitation, she shakes her head and declares that she's never removing it. Sherry, without hesitation, says she'll keep wearing the pendant no matter what she's wearing because it's his gift to her. With that, she pulls him into a tight hug, promising she'll cherish it forever. The two are overwhelmed with emotion, and their parents watch from a distance, clearly pleased with the moment. After a tearful goodbye, their car carriages leave, and they wave to each other, still feeling the weight of their farewell. As the carriages roll away, Leo suddenly recalls the shopkeeper's earlier words. He turns to his father, a serious expression on his face, and says he's been thinking about leaving the estate to explore the world. Meanwhile, across the sea, a ship sails quietly under a darkened sky. An old woman, hooded, looks over her shoulder, checking if they're being followed. Her young companion, also hooded, smiles brightly, her eyes shining with excitement about the journey. With a gentle smile, the older woman tells her to get ready. They'll be arriving soon. Back in the Vector Empire, Leo arrives at the Forster mansion, bowing deeply in gratitude to his uncle and grandmother. His grandfather, however, seems too distracted to notice. Karina smiles and reassures Leo that he's free to treat the mansion as his own home from now on. Damien, ever the skeptic, teases his brother for acting so childishly. Leo, however, explains that he's not there on a whim. He's been thinking about the time he met someone who spoke poorly of his magical abilities. Both Karina and Damien sit beside him, ready to offer comfort, but Leo shakes his head. He isn't upset, he just believes it's a waste to judge abilities as useful or useless when they're simply different. He likes his magic just the way it is, and has decided to redefine its meaning. Just then, a familiar voice calls out proudly. Leo's grandfather Kento appears, beaming with confidence as he declares that his useless skill was once the very thing that saved the world. Leo, shocked by this revelation, watches in disbelief as his grandfather hands him a bowl of what's called hero ramen. He's stunned. He never expected such a thing to exist, let alone be served to him. Sitting down, his grandfather asks Leo how much he's grown since their last meeting. Leo, still trying to process everything, summons his status card and wonders just how much different his grandfather's stats might be. When he appraises Kanto's card, he's utterly dumbfounded. The old man's stats are maxed out. But that's not the most mind-blowing part. Something else catches Leo's eye, a detail he never expected to see. At the bottom, a label suggests that he, too, came from another world. The thought of asking about it crosses his mind, but he hesitates, worried they might cast him out if they realize he doesn't belong. Meanwhile, Kento lets out a shocked yell after seeing the boy's status. His magic far surpasses Kento's own. Karina starts to say something, but stops, her expression shifting the moment she sees it for herself. A dark glint appears in their eyes. They exchange glances, realizing they've found someone truly worth training. Their laughter grows eerily excited. In Vector Castle, Sherry lies alone in her room, wondering what Leo might be up to. Holding her abdomen, she thinks about how much she wants another sleepover. Elsewhere, exhaustion takes over and the boy dozes off on the couch. Understanding how tiring his journey must have been, his grandmother gently urges him to sleep in a proper bed. Half asleep, he nods and heads upstairs, mumbling a drowsy goodnight to his family. As he walks, a faint melody drifts from the staircase. Curious, he follows the sound down a dimly lit hallway. He glances around, wondering if his ears are playing tricks on him. Then, without warning, a figure appears right behind him. His breath catches as he watches her float past. Every trace of sleep vanishes, replaced by a chill creeping down his spine. His body trembles as realization sets in. This isn't just his imagination. She moves toward a room, the door creaking open bit by bit. Despite the fear clawing at his chest, he takes a step forward, letting the dim light spill into the hallway. Inside, an overwhelming sight greets him, rows of weapons and armor filling the space. He scans the room, searching for the mysterious woman, but she's nowhere to be seen. Then, at the center of it all, a sword catches his eye. Chained and nailed to the wall, it radiates an unmistakable presence, something far different from the rest. Almost as if drawn to it, he reaches out and lightly touches the blade. Panic surges through him as a sudden force begins draining his magic. He gasps, trying to pull away, but his body feels frozen. He struggles to compose himself, mind racing for a way to stop it. Then she appears again. The woman from before, now revealing herself as the sword's manifestation. Elmina stares at him in surprise. Her gaze sharpens. "You can see me?" Instinctively, he raises his hands in a defensive gesture. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Her eyes narrow slightly, but curiosity flickers across her face. "You know my name. And you're still standing after touching my blade?" A tense silence hangs between them before she finally speaks again, interest evident in her tone. "Tell me your name." His fear slowly melts into something else. Excitement. Could this really mean? But before he lets his hopes rise too high, Elminel gives him a warning. The sword remains bound by chains. To wield it, he must first provide enough magic to set it free. A sword with a will of its own fascinates him, but knowing he lacks the power to wield it, he chooses to train under his grandfather instead. To Elmina's surprise, he readily agrees and vows to do his best. Watching him wave goodnight so earnestly makes her chuckle. Who would have thought a boy would take her words so seriously? Still, she squirms, uneasy about the lingering sensation of the magic energy she tasted. The next morning, Leo greets his grandfather with an eager smile, asking him to oversee his training. The old man, thrilled that his grandson is finally willing to learn, feels a surge of motivation. However, instead of diving straight into swordsmanship, he decides to start with the fundamentals of magic control. The term confuses Leo at first. His grandfather explains, "It's the ability to regulate magic within one's body, a crucial skill for any fighter. The goal is to ensure magic flows seamlessly, enhancing one's abilities to the fullest." Kento estimates that it'll take about 6 months for him to grasp the concept. But then Leo does something unexpected. He channels his magic and asks if he's doing it right. Kento's eyes widen in shock. The boy's entire body is already brimming with perfectly controlled magic. Stunned, he demands to know how Leo managed such a feat so effortlessly. Flustered, Leo recalls the time spent with Sherry but brushes it off as the result of practice. His rapid growth is far beyond what Kento expected. Seeing his potential, the former hero decides to alter the training plan, a wide grin spreading across his face. To start, he orders Leo to use neutral magic and run. Excited, the boy accepts the challenge. Logically, channeling magic into his legs should make him faster. Confident in his reasoning, he concentrates and prepares to dash forward. The moment he takes off, his legs move far ahead of his body, too fast to keep up. He stumbles, crashing to the ground in confusion. Kento only laughs. "You overloaded your legs. Your body couldn't keep up." A painful lesson learned. Enhancing magic requires balance, not just raw power. Without wasting time, the old man switches to a new exercise. Running around isn't fun, so they move on to training with sticks. Though feeling slightly rushed, Leo grabs a branch and starts swinging it. This time, instead of relying purely on strength, he needs to distribute magic evenly inside him. His next swing meets Kento's stick, but the moment they collide, Leo's branch snaps in two from a simple block. Before he can react, Kento closes the distance in an instant, ready to strike. "You're not even close to being ready for a real fight," he states firmly. Then, with a smirk, he flicks Leo's forehead, telling him they'll continue after a meal. From that day forward, Leo dedicates himself to training. He experiments with different techniques while following his grandfather's guidance. After countless attempts, he finally manages to hold his ground against the old man, even successfully parrying his attacks. Fueled by determination and confidence in his progress, he grips his stick tightly and prepares to deliver a decisive strike. It's way too obvious and easy to avoid with a quick spin. In one swift move, Kento lands a harsh strike on his grandson's back, knocking him forward with a sharp jolt of pain. Laughing loudly, he tells the boy he's still got a long way to go. As the kid groans about his aching back, the old man pauses, genuinely surprised that he's picking things up this fast. Still sprawled on the ground, Leo glances up and yelps in shock. A girl is standing right above him. Flustered, he quickly throws his hands over his eyes while she hurriedly adjusts her dress. Karina steps forward, greeting them and mentioning they arrived earlier than expected. Selena, the elderly woman, pulls Karina into a hug, apologizing for making the couple take them in. Brushing it off as no big deal, they all head inside. Leo, still confused, calls out, trying to understand what's going on. His grandmother then realizes he wasn't told about any of this. She introduces her friend and her friend's granddaughter, who will now be living with them. Rina, the saint's granddaughter, shyly introduces herself, clearly not expecting to be sharing a home with a boy. Leo, just as stunned, struggles to process the fact that they're going to be living under the same roof. The two kids, clearly confused, question what's going on. Rina had expected a long journey, not this sudden change. They're told to just think of it as a temporary stay, but no further details are given. Meanwhile, Kento casually greets the visitors, trading jokes like old friends. It turns out they were once part of a team, which helps the girl realize who they really are, the legendary hero and magician. Leo puts the pieces together too, recognizing the older guest as the saint and the very first user of holy magic. After settling in, they go quiet for a moment before formally introducing themselves. It doesn't take long for them to agree to drop the formalities. Suddenly, Rina's eyes widen when she notices Leo's injuries. Before he can brush them off, she gently takes his hand and tells him to relax, her voice soft and reassuring. A gentle glow surrounds them as she activates her skill, a comforting warmth spreading through his body. Within moments, his wounds are completely healed. Leo stares, amazed by both her and holy magic itself. Blushing slightly, she admits that aside from herself, he's the first person she's ever used it on. Still holding his hand, she shyly explains how much she's practiced, always feeling the need to help anyone who's hurt. Realizing she's been holding on for too long, she quickly lets go, apologizing with an embarrassed look. Selena, watching from the side, is surprised. Rina is usually too timid to heal others, yet she did so without hesitation. Moving on, Kento casually announces that he'll be training with his grandmother next and even tells her to go all out. Thinking she couldn't possibly be as intense as the old man, Leo accepts the challenge without much thought. But the moment he appraises her, he freezes. Her magic skills are completely maxed out, almost equal to the hero's. Karina assures him that her training is simple and not too difficult. This is immediately proven false when she instructs him to dodge her spells by sensing the magic in the air. Not fully understanding but feeling the danger, he instinctively steps back just as she fires her first spell. As she prepares another, she warns him not to rely on his eyes but to feel the magic's presence instead. Frustrated, he complains about having to sense things he can't even touch. The situation turns dire as two spells close in on him at the same time. With no time to escape, he raises his arms in defense, bracing for impact, but then he senses something. A faint light approaching. More of them appear, bundles of magical energy swirling around him. Trusting this new sense, he carefully evades each attack step by step. His movements are sharper, more precise than before. It's an insane method, something only his over-the-top grandmother would come up with, but somehow it works. And just like that, he takes his first step toward mastering detection magic. Kento eventually calls off the training, grumbling that things are taking too long. He even teases Leo, saying he shouldn't be this exhausted from such light training. But despite his words, the old man is honestly shocked. His grandson has picked up magic detection, void magic, and improved his sword skills all in a short time. Watching him, Kento wonders if such a sudden surge in power will truly bring him happiness. Karina snaps him out of his thoughts, reminding him about the reward he promised. Realizing he almost forgot, Kento brightens up and tells Leo that he's earned a present for all his hard work. With that, he leads him to the treasury, a room packed with legendary weapons and equipment. Since Kento himself no longer needs them, he tells Leo to pick whatever he wants. Without hesitation, Leo steps forward, already knowing exactly what he wants. When he makes his choice, Rina looks at him in shock. She points out that it's a demon sword, the same one wielded by the Demon King. Before she can question him further, a voice chimes in. Elmina appears, amused by how much the girl knows. She even remarks that Rina might have more magical power than the hero himself. Kento immediately scolds Elmina for getting too close to the kids, but she just laughs and mocks his poor control over magic. Before he can argue, Leo surprises him by saying he's here for her. He reminds her of the agreement they made last time to help boost his magic power. Elmina is skeptical, doubting he could have grown that much in just 5 days. Seeing how casual he is about it only annoys her further. Excited, Leo asks to give it a try. He steps closer, shuts his eyes to focus, and tells her to take his magic power. Placing his hand on her abdomen, just like he did with Sherry, he channels his energy into her. Elmina trembles at the sudden rush of power but tries to keep her composure, refusing to show weakness. Seeing this as a challenge, Leo releases even more energy. She attempts to stop him, but it's already too late. A startled squeal escapes her as the surge of magic overwhelms her. In that moment, the sword breaks free from its chains and lands in Leo's hands, officially recognizing him as its new owner. With that settled, everyone is called to the dining hall for dinner. Meanwhile, in Vector Castle, a voice echoes through the hall, frustrated upon hearing that Leo won't be coming. Damien calmly reports that the eldest son, Evan, is on his way, and that the third son's training will take another 6 months. The voice hesitates, barely holding back another complaint before apologizing for bothering the commander. As he watches her with gentle eyes, the pendant around her neck suddenly glows brightly, making her wonder if something just happened to her friend. Morning sunlight spills into Leo's room, warming his face as he slowly opens his eyes. His drowsiness vanishes in an instant when he realizes Rina is curled up beside him, holding onto him tightly. Staring in shock, he racks his brain to figure out how this happened. Memories of last night flood back. He had been carrying her to her room, but she could barely stay awake. On the way, she leaned against him, mumbling in her sleep, calling out for her parents. Just as he was about to reach her bed, they tripped and tumbled together. Now, looking at her peaceful face, he wonders if she's feeling lonely after being separated from her family. Maybe he should do something for her. But first, he really needs to get out of this situation. She clings to him even tighter, making that part a little more complicated. Meanwhile, in another room, Selena sips her tea, smiling as she asks Karina how many decades it's been since she last brewed for her. Even after bringing peace, Karina has been too busy, especially with the Garam theocracy refusing to back down. They even went so far as to try and kill her family. The saint lowers her cup, unable to hold back her tears as she remembers losing her son and his wife. Now those same people are after Rina. Wiping her eyes, she quietly promises to do whatever it takes to protect her granddaughter. She mentions that the king is young but dependable. If he agrees to help, Rina might have a real chance at safety. Determined, she states her intention to seek an audience with him. Hearing this, Kento grins and pulls out something from his coat. A sealed letter. It's an invitation to Princess Sherry's birthday celebration. With such an important event happening on a grand scale, security will be at its peak and key figures from all over will be attending. It's the perfect opportunity. Karina offers to go along, but Kento immediately shoots her down, saying there's no point in sending an old woman to accompany a peer. This earns him a well-deserved smack. As they resume their tea, they demand a better idea. Rubbing his head, Kento suggests sending a bodyguard instead. Later, Leo receives the news and perks up in excitement. He eagerly asks if he can go, but Kento waves it off, saying Rina is the official representative while Leo is just a surprise guest. However, there's a small problem. His sword doesn't fit the dress code. Elmina, clearly not happy about being left behind, protests. Leo understands the rule and doesn't argue, but he wonders if there's a way to bring her along. His eyes land on his cape, made of magic silk, a rare fabric filled with dense magical energy. A thought clicks in his mind. Taking it off, he wraps it around a magic stone and infuses it with his energy. The fabric glows faintly as he focuses on shaping it into something practical. Using a technique similar to the dimensional storage skill listed under his grandfather's abilities, he crafts a waist bag with its own pocket dimension. Its storage capacity depends on the magic used to create it, and only Leo can access it. Strapping the bag to his waist, he admires his handiwork. Finally, he calls Elmina over, transforms her into sword form, and carefully places her inside. Problem solved. Worried about accidentally ripping open a hole in the fabric, they hesitate, but Elmina dives deeper into the space, marveling at its vastness. Shocked, Rina and Kento demand to know what Leo just did. He casually explains that it's just something he created using magic. Kento once again is left speechless by his grandson's abilities. It's not an offensive or healing skill, it's pure creation. This could be an entirely new way to use magic. Later, as their carriage speeds down the road, Rina's excitement is impossible to contain. She cheers loudly as the horses gallop, completely caught up in the thrill of the ride. Selena tries to calm her down, occasionally casting apologetic glances at Leo. He simply laughs, saying he's happy to be traveling with them. As they chat about the upcoming party, the old saint watches them warmly, glad to see their enthusiasm. Upon arriving at Vector Castle, they are stopped at the entrance for identity confirmation. Once cleared, Damien greets them and informs them that Diorc has already arrived. He leads them inside, where Leo immediately spots Princess Sherry. With a bright smile, he wishes her a happy birthday. Sherry's face lights up at the sight of him, but her expression quickly changes when she notices the girl standing beside him. A flicker of suspicion crosses her face as she coolly asks who the girl is. Sensing the tension, Rina quickly introduces herself, explaining that she's from the Garam theocracy and is currently living with Leo and his grandmother. Though Sherry maintains a polite smile, her mind races at the revelation. She wasn't expecting a girl from Garam to be this close to Leo. Still, she refuses to let her emotions show. Instead, she attempts to subtly re-establish her connection with Leo. With a proud smile, she lifts the necklace hanging around her neck, pointing out that Leo made it especially for her. Never mind the fact that his magic crafting was supposed to be a secret. Right now, she just wants to remind Rina that she holds a special place in his life. Rina, genuinely impressed, admires the necklace and praises Leo's craftsmanship. Her words make Sherry even more protective, but Leo, completely oblivious to the growing tension, simply thanks Rina and casually promises to make one for her next time. That's the last straw. Feeling threatened, Sherry decides to use her charm magic to draw Leo's attention back to her. But just as she casts the spell, Leo bends down to pick something up from the ground, completely dodging it without realizing. Instead, the charm hits Rina. The effect is immediate. Her eyes soften, and with a sudden burst of affection, she throws her arms around Cherry, happily declaring that they must be best friends. Cherry's smugness vanishes in an instant. Horrified, she realizes she just charmed the wrong person. With her face burning, she glares at Leo, who remains blissfully unaware of what just happened. Frustrated, she quickly drags the group into a private room, away from any prying eyes. Once inside, the magic wears off, and Rena suddenly snaps back to normal. Realizing what she just did, she quickly kneels, apologizing profusely for her behavior. Cherry, feeling a bit shy but still curious, asks if Rena was serious about wanting to be friends. She admits that, as a princess, she doesn't have any real female friends, and would really like to be Rena's friend. Rena, thrilled, quickly says yes, calling it a huge honor to be friends with the princess. They instantly click, chatting and laughing like they've known each other forever. But then, things take a sharp turn. A group of dangerous-looking men walks into the castle, and before anyone can react, there's a massive explosion. Panic spreads as the guests scramble to escape. Leo immediately goes on alert, scanning the area for danger. The situation gets even worse when more men, disguised as guests, reveal themselves to be shinobi, blocking the exits and trapping everyone inside. Diorc jumps into action, using his powerful magic to take down the intruders effortlessly.
With a steely look, he vows to find any hidden allies among the enemies. Another shinobi is swiftly defeated by Diorc with a single powerful strike. His serious expression calms the panicking guests as he reassures them that a special magic force has already been sent to the main venue, likely handling things there. Diorc briefly thinks of Damien, feeling sure his comrade is deep into the fight as well. Back at the main venue, Damien is locked in an intense duel with Aaron, his former best friend. Their swords clash violently, each blow echoing with the weight of their shared history. Aaron mocks Damien, saying he's gotten weaker since staying with the squad. Damien stays calm, replying that while they were once fierce rivals, Aaron isn't the person he used to be. Aaron, with a sneer, says nothing's changed for him since leaving the squad. Facing Damien in battle is all that matters. They clash again, the air thick with tension. Damien, determined to protect the princess and end this madness, promises to stop Aaron no matter what. Aaron, driven by his mission, swears to do whatever it takes to take the princess's life.
Aaron lets out a wild laugh, calling the whole situation dull and unexciting. He muses about livening things up by going after the nobles first, turning it into some kind of twisted hunt to get his adrenaline rushing. The mere suggestion makes Damien tense up, his grip on his sword tightening in fury. At the same time, the danger near Leo and the girls grows. The shinobi begin closing in on their hiding spot, making the air thick with tension. Sensing the fear in the girls, Leo speaks in a steady voice, trying to reassure them. He reminds them that Damien is fighting at the main venue and will protect everyone no matter what. Sherry, still scared, finds a bit of comfort in his words, especially when he adds that he'll protect her as well. His determination gives her a sliver of hope despite the chaos. But just as he finishes speaking, a shadowy figure silently emerges behind them, magic surging at his fingertips. In an instant, the enemy prepares to unleash a devastating attack. Without thinking twice, Leo reacts, summoning the power of Elmania, the demon sword. With a sharp motion, he intercepts the magic, blocking the deadly strike before it can reach them. Before he can launch a counterattack, Diorc suddenly appears behind the enemy, striking with precise force and knocking the shinobi unconscious. Elmina's voice rings out almost immediately, her usual teasing tone replaced by a sharp seriousness. She scolds Leo for hesitating, pointing out something strange. This enemy wasn't acting on his own. The flow of magic in his body made it clear he was being controlled. Diorc's eyes widen as realization sets in. This wasn't just an ambush. Someone was manipulating these fighters, forcibly drawing out their power like puppets on strings. That meant the mastermind had to be close. They didn't have much time. Leo, however, isn't convinced they'll be able to track down the one pulling the strings. With so many people scattered throughout the castle, finding the real enemy would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. But Diorc refuses to let doubt slow him down. The situation is escalating, and if they don't act fast, things will only get worse. Meanwhile, hidden in the shadows, a dark presence lingers, watching Damien and Aaron's battle with unsettling interest. The hidden figure watches Damien closely, seeing him as a major obstacle that could ruin their carefully laid plans. Meanwhile, across the room, Leo and the others suddenly sense a heavy, suffocating presence. Leo's instincts flare, and he immediately tells Diorc that this must be the one pulling the strings. Without hesitation, Diorc urges the children to retreat, but Leo refuses. His eyes burn with determination. He isn't running away. Instead, he looks to his father and asks for his strength in the coming fight. Diorc, seeing the resolve in his son, gives a proud nod and prepares himself. With swift, precise movements, he cuts through the incoming shinobi, demonstrating the full extent of his power. At the same time, Elmina activates her special ability, giving Leo the power to see deeper into the enemy's magic. His eyes widen as he uncovers the secret behind the puppeteer's control. a hidden magic stone buried somewhere on the battlefield. Realizing the key to turning the tide, Leo uses his own magic to create a similar stone, calling it Album Appetite. This stone brims with raw chaotic energy, capable of triggering bizarre mutations and abnormalities. The moment it forms, an overwhelming surge of dark magic pulses through Leo, nearly knocking him off balance. Diorc, having just finished his own battle, rushes to his son's side. He steadies Leo, helping him withstand the immense energy coursing through his body. As Leo regains control, he notices something strange. His father's enchanted gauntlet is somehow stabilizing him. A thought sparks in his mind, and he quickly asks Diorc if he can borrow it. Without hesitation, Diorc hands it over. Gripping the gauntlet tightly, Leo channels his creation magic, forcing the corrupted stone to revert back to its pure form. Then, he fuses the cleansed stone with the gauntlet, crafting a new, powerful weapon. The newly forged gauntlet hums with energy, pulsing with a radiant force strong enough to break the dark magic enslaving the cursed individuals. The moment Leo activates it, a soothing wave spreads across the battlefield. One by one, those under the wicked spell snap back to reality, their dazed eyes clearing as the curse lifts. Even the struggling allies feel a surge of renewed strength, their exhaustion fading. As the last of the cursed awaken from their trance, Leo freezes in shock. Among them stands a familiar face. The shopkeeper from before. The man, still groggy, looks just as surprised to see Leo. His voice, though shaky, carries a warning. He mentions seeing a strange group lurking around the palace earlier, but beyond that, he remains unaware of the chaos that has unfolded around him. In another corner of the battlefield, RN watches, stunned, as Leo effortlessly cancels out the dark magic. His disbelief quickly turns to rage. Snaring at Damien, he can't believe how easily the boy disrupted his plans. Calm, but unwavering, Damien tells him he doesn't stand a chance and urges him to surrender. But RN, consumed by anger, turns his focus to Leo, whose dark black hair reminds him of the former hero, another source of his burning hatred. The two lock eyes, and Leo, feeling the weight of Aaron's past actions, can't hold back his own anger. This man had ruined Sherry's birthday and harmed innocent people. With his resolve solidifying, Leo charges, vowing to show Aaron what magic is truly meant for. To protect, not destroy. Elsewhere, the king feels helpless, burdened with regret as his daughter remains in danger. The queen tries to comfort him, reminding him that those he trusts are with the princess and that Leo will always protect her, no matter the cost. Back at the main castle, Leo finds himself locked in a fierce duel with Aaron, who is shocked to find that the young warrior can match him blow for blow. Their swords clash with incredible force, each fighting with equal skill. Aaron mocks Leo's magic, calling it useless despite its ability to create solid, tangible objects. But in the middle of their fight, Damien suddenly steps in, blocking one of Aaron's strikes. The unexpected move catches everyone off guard. Standing firm, Damien declares that he's determined to stop Aaron from causing more harm. With renewed determination, Leo and Damien work together, seamlessly attacking and defending in unison as they try to subdue their opponent. Damien urges Aaron to surrender if he has no real purpose, but Aaron snarls back, insisting he does. The black-hailed hero betrayed their country and joined Vector, causing his family's suffering. Fueled by this grudge, Aaron is fixated on getting vengeance on Leo, the descendant of the hero. His eyes burn with fury as he vows to kill them both, punishing Leo for the torment he's carried his entire life. Suddenly, Aaron activates a smoke screen, thick fog filling the room and obscuring their vision. Leo and Damien stay on high alert, straining their senses to track Aaron's movements. In the midst of the chaos, Aaron reappears behind Damien, but Leo, having sensed his presence, is quick to block the attack. Aaron staggers back, surprised that Leo could anticipate his move. As the battle rages on, Leo can't help but ask Aaron why he holds such deep hatred for him and his lineage. Aaron lets out a crazed laugh, his deep hatred spilling into his words as he declares that Leo's very existence is something he intends to make him regret. But as Leo deflects each of his attacks, he notices something unusual. Aaron's strikes, despite his vicious words, feel hesitant, almost as if he's holding back. The realization only fuels Aaron's rage, and with a fierce blow, he sends Leo hurtling across the room. Disgusted, Aaron's mind flashes back to the moment he discovered that Damien was part of the Forster family, the very bloodline he despised the most. Sneering, he tells Leo that he will never understand the depths of his suffering. Damien, seeing Leo struggle, warns him to step back, insisting that Aaron is too dangerous. But Leo, unwavering, reassures his uncle that he's more than capable of handling the fight. After all, he was trained by his grandfather and carries the bloodline of the hero. Determined to put an end to the battle, Leo grips his demon sword, Elmena, and calls upon its power, asking it to lend him strength. The blade hums with dark energy, and as Leo charges forward, the sheer force of his attack sends Aaron flying straight out of the castle and into the nearby woods. Staring at his own sword in shock, Leo glances at Damien, realizing that the fight isn't over yet. Damien gives him a reassuring nod, commending his skill and reminding him that he made the right choice. Unfortunately, the attack brings Sherry's birthday celebration to an abrupt end. But despite the chaos, no one is harmed thanks to the protective magic of the Holy Maiden. The nobles, though shaken, show resilience, ready to support the kingdom however they can. However, the investigation into the attack yields no answers. Whoever ordered the hit remains a mystery. The one silver lining is that the princess remains safe. A few days later, word of Leo's battle spreads, and he starts receiving praise for his efforts in defeating Aren. Kento, his proud grandfather, chuckles and casually remarks that if he were 50 years younger, he would have crushed Aren effortlessly with his ultimate magic. Karina laughs at his comment, playfully reminding him not to turn it into a competition with his grandson. Smiling, Leo then presents the gauntlet he used during the fight, explaining the unique magical properties infused within it. Karina examines it with amazement, noting the immense amount of mana stored inside. Leo goes on to explain that depending on how the weapon is wielded, it can unleash various special abilities. Intrigued, Kento points to the embedded gem and asks about it. Leo reveals its name, Album Appetite, a rare stone that serves as the weapon's mana source. The shopkeeper, overhearing their conversation, chimes in, mentioning that this kind of stone is highly sought after by magic tool craftsmen because of how easily it absorbs mana. However, it's incredibly rare, only found deep within the most treacherous dungeon levels. As Kento and the shopkeeper begin swapping tales about legendary stones and perilous dungeons, Leo listens intently, his curiosity growing with every word. The shopkeeper then mentions the city's many descending dungeons, popular among adventurers looking to prove their skills. He even recalls how Damien gained fame for conquering a towering 40-floor dungeon, an ascending type notorious for its difficulty. Not to be outdone, Kento boasts about his own feat of clearing a seemingly endless Demon Lord's dungeon. Hearing all this, Leo's excitement builds. He starts thinking that if he explores these dungeons himself, he might discover rare materials and even uncover clues about the recent attack. Without hesitation, he turns to his grandfather and asks if they can make a dungeon their next training ground. Kento, clearly impressed by Leo's determination, agrees, promising that their next challenge will be just that. The very next day, Sherry unexpectedly arrives at Karina's house, luggage in hand, announcing that she'll be staying for 10 days while the palace undergoes renovations. Karina hesitates at first, but can't help smiling at the princess's enthusiasm. However, Sherry's excitement quickly fades when she asks for Leo, only to learn that he has already set off with Kento to train in a dungeon, a journey that could take up to half a year. Heartbroken, Sherry's eyes well up with tears, and before anyone can react, she bursts into uncontrollable sobs. Karina and Rina exchange surprised looks, not expecting such a strong reaction from her. That evening, as Sherry spends time with Rina, she suddenly blurts out an idea. Why not follow Leo to the dungeon? Her eyes shine with mischief, but Rina immediately protests. Sneaking into a dungeon wasn't some casual adventure, it was incredibly dangerous, and if the princess were to disappear, the entire kingdom would be in chaos. Even so, Sherry refuses to back down. She looks at Rina, a knowing glint in her eyes, and asks, "Don't you miss Leo too?" Rina hesitates for a moment before quietly admitting that she does. That's all the encouragement Sherry needs. Seizing the opportunity, she insists that if they both want to see Leo, they should at least consider a way to reach the dungeon. Soon enough, the two are deep in secret planning, whispering about possible routes and ways to avoid being caught. Just then, they spot the shopkeeper wandering near the house. A spark of inspiration flashes across Sherry's face and she grins, already forming a new plan. Kento and Leo finally arrive at the lively town where the dungeon is located, and Leo is practically vibrating with excitement. The streets are full of adventurers, all bustling with energy, ready to face the dangers of the dungeon. His heart races at the thought of all the challenges that await. Sensing Leo's enthusiasm, Elmina, the demon sword, urges him to head straight into the dungeon and start hunting monsters right away. Leo, eager to begin, agrees, and the duo decides to check out the first floor to get a feel for what lies ahead. As they make their way through the town, Kento notices the magic carrier Leo crafted. He comments on how useful it is for long journeys, able to carry everything from weapons to food without ever getting too heavy. Leo, thrilled by the praise, can't help but brag a little, admitting that he based the design on one of Kento's old skills. After a little while of wandering, they finally reach the entrance of the dungeon. There they meet an adventurer in heavy armor standing with his party. Curious, Leo asks the man what level they've reached in the dungeon. The adventurer laughs it off and instead asks what level they plan to reach. He then arrogantly boasts about the need for armor as strong as his if they're to survive, pointing out that a grandfather and grandson like them shouldn't be taking a leisurely walk into such a dangerous place. He advises them to turn back before it's too late. Kento, always calm, thanks the man for his advice, but assures him that they aren't interested in treasure hunting. With a casual glance at the adventurer's armor, Kento mentions that while it's certainly impressive, the man's heels look worn out and could make it harder for him to swing a sword properly. He suggests the adventurer straighten his back to improve his strikes. The adventurer bristles at the comment, but Kento and Leo simply bid him farewell and continue on their way. Once they're out of earshot, Leo can't help but praise his grandfather for how calm and collected he was, just like a true hero. Eager to learn more, Leo excitedly asks Kento to teach him everything he knows about dungeon exploration and fighting. He promises to give it his all during their training. Kento, energized by Leo's enthusiasm, declares that they'll start combat training immediately. However, Leo soon gets distracted by some ores lying around, recognizing them as valuable for crafting. Kento, watching this, can't help but feel a little disheartened. He had hoped for some serious training, but his grandson seems more interested in the stones than the combat lessons. Leo quickly apologizes to Kento, explaining that the stones are actually useful for his crafting. Before Kento can respond, Leo trips a hidden trap, falling into a pit. Kento is immediately at the edge of the hole, checking to make sure Leo's okay. Leo reassures him that he's fine, but Kento warns him to watch out for the creature behind him as he pulls him up. Leo turns around only to find himself face to face with a goblin, its dark eyes staring hungrily at him. Panic rises in Leo. This is the first time he's encountered a goblin, and it's terrifying. But Kento stays calm, urging Leo to focus and face the challenge head-on. Leo takes a deep breath and, with Elmina in hand, readies himself as the goblin lunges at him. In one swift strike, Leo defeats the goblin, earning a proud smile from Kento. As they inspect the goblin's body, they find a small magic stone among its drops. Leo's excitement grows, but Kento reminds him that they need to stay sharp. There are far worse monsters lurking deeper in the dungeon, and every 10 levels, a boss awaits them. Leo's mood dims slightly at the thought, but Kento suggests they head back to the inn for some rest, noting that Leo has already leveled up after the battle. At the inn, Leo struggles to sleep, frustrated by Kento's loud snoring. Despite being exhausted, Leo spends the night working on accessories made from the magic stones using his creation magic. By morning, he's made cufflinks with an auto-mapping function and earrings that light up and detect traps. Kento wakes up to find Leo in the middle of his work, impressed by his grandson's ingenuity. Curious, Kento asks what level Leo has reached, and Leo proudly says he's already at level 4 after defeating the goblin. Kento's excitement builds at the thought of Leo's progress. Leo smiles, but deep down, he's worried. He's been wearing a growth bracelet he made when he was 5, which doubles his skill points, making his stats far higher than they should be for his current level. Kento, undeterred, encourages Leo to treat their dungeon exploration like serious training and to push forward as if they were conquering the dungeon. Leo, though conflicted, nods with determination. He'll just have to keep his secret a little longer. While joking around, they don't realize that unseen figures are quietly observing them from the shadows. As they venture further into the dungeon, Leo activates a pair of enchanted earrings that emit light. Kento, noticing how useful they are, mentions that they free up his hands while exploring. Leo, feeling proud, points out that the light also reveals hidden traps, which has helped them avoid trouble along the way. Examining the traps, Leo realizes they seem artificially placed, likely by previous adventurers. Since carrying too many items is impractical, scavenging has become common in the dungeon. Kento, appreciating Leo's magic storage tool, comments that it makes collecting monster loot much easier. Suddenly, a loud scream echoes from ahead, making them sprint toward the noise. On reaching the scene, they find Rina and Sherry dangling upside down in a trap. Leo is caught off guard, knowing they shouldn't be here. After helping them down, the girls eagerly explain that they traveled with the shopkeeper to find him and even brought tents and books for the journey. Leo chuckles awkwardly, assuming it's too dangerous for them to continue. However, Kento unexpectedly suggests they join, believing that anyone who dared to come this far might have some hidden talent.
Before long, they arrive at a massive door marking the 10th floor boss chamber. Kento explains that defeating the Guardian will turn the area into a resting point for the night. With combined effort, they push open the heavy doors, revealing an enormous goblin king standing in their path. Kento notes that this rare creature should drop valuable loot. The monster lets out a thunderous roar, making the girls tremble. Wanting to keep them safe, Leo steps in front and asks his grandfather to watch over them while he deals with the threat. With Elmina's support, Leo launches an attack, swiftly taking down the beast. Kento immediately commends his skills. But before they can fully celebrate, the Goblin King suddenly stirs and strikes back at Leo. Sensing the danger, Kento reacts instantly, obliterating the creature with a single move. Stunned, Leo wonders why he hadn't detected its magic before. With a knowing smile, Kento simply tells him he still has much to learn. Kento tells the kids that once they finish gathering the loot, it's time to call it a day and rest. As they collect the drops, he quietly inspects the fallen Goblin King, wondering why Leo's attack hadn't been enough to finish it off. Something doesn't feel right. Meanwhile, far away, a dark force slowly stirs, lurking in the depths, waiting. Later, they settle into their designated safe zone, finally able to relax. Kento dozes off almost immediately, while Leo keeps the girls entertained with his magical tricks. Despite having seen him create things out of thin air multiple times, they still react with excitement, completely fascinated by his skills. As the night drags on, sleep becomes difficult, and the girls beg Leo to use his magic to stir their mana again, saying it helps them rest better. Feeling awkward but giving in to their request, he does as they ask, filling their mana with a soothing energy that makes them relax almost instantly. Several days pass inside the dungeon, and everything goes smoothly. With each battle, their strength grows and their levels increase at an impressive rate. When Leo checks his stats, he notices a huge jump in his level, thanks to the enchanted bracelet he's been wearing. However, he decides not to think too much about it, pushing aside the fact that his level seems abnormally high for his age. As they push deeper, stronger monsters appear, but they handle each fight more effortlessly than before. By the time they reach the 30th floor, Kento is genuinely impressed by how much the kids have improved, especially since they've managed most of the journey on their own. Leo, feeling grateful, sincerely thanks his grandfather, believing they wouldn't have come this far without his guidance. However, in the middle of their conversation, Kento suddenly collapses, falling into a deep sleep and snoring loudly. Leo panics, rushing to check on him, while the girls exchange glances, troubled by something and deciding to act on it. Later that night, Leo wakes up with an urgent need to use the bathroom. As he walks past the girls' sleeping area, he stops in his tracks upon noticing they aren't there. His heart pounds as his gaze locks onto the open door leading outside the safe zone. A wave of panic washes over him. What if they're in danger? Without wasting a second, he rushes out to find them, only to spot a massive ogre lurking just outside their resting area. Holding his breath, he carefully sneaks past the creature, following a faint splashing sound in the distance. What he finds leaves him completely stunned. The two girls are casually bathing, completely unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The girls greet Leo with bright smiles, casually explaining that they couldn't wait any longer and decided to bathe. Leo quickly looks away, his face heating up as he scolds them for being reckless, reminding them that they are still inside a dangerous dungeon. Before he can continue, a heavy sound rumbles behind him. The ogre is lifting its weapon, ready to strike. Leo panics, reaching for Almina, only to realize he left his sword behind in his rush to find them. Before he can react, Sherry bravely steps forward, using her charm magic to stall the ogre. Rina follows up, summoning her holy staff while telling Leo to step aside and watch. With precise coordination, she restrains the monster while Sherry unleashes a powerful blast of water magic, delivering the final blow. The massive creature crashes to the ground, defeated. The girls turn to Leo with victorious grins, proudly stating that they can handle themselves and don't need constant protection. However, Leo, still reeling from the situation, and from seeing them right after their bath, finds it impossible to meet their eyes. Flustered, he mutters an excuse about needing the bathroom and hurriedly escapes, leaving the girls chuckling behind him. As more time passes, Leo realizes their current safe area isn't enough anymore. Deciding to do something about it, he crafts an enchanted tent that will serve as their new base, knowing they'll be in the dungeon for a while. The tent is reinforced with protective spells to keep monsters and intruders away, and inside it's equipped with everything they need, including proper rooms and essential supplies. When the others first see the small, ordinary-looking tent, they're skeptical. But as soon as they step inside, their jaws drop at the spacious and well-furnished interior. After a long day, they settle in, share a warm meal, and finally enjoy some well-earned rest.
Meanwhile, at the Forster mansion, Damien bursts into laughter upon hearing that Kento took Leo into the dungeon, amused that the old man is still as competitive as ever. But his expression soon turns serious as he mentions the dangers awaiting them beyond the 41st floor. While Kento may have handled it effortlessly in his prime, Damien wonders if he can still fight at full strength while looking after a child. Harina reassures him, saying Kento wouldn't be reckless with Leo's safety, though when she casually mentions that Rina and Sherry are with them too, Damien looks horrified. Back in the dungeon, an unsettling tension lingers in the air. Kento, usually composed, starts sweating as eerie whispers fill his mind, as though something unseen is creeping into his thoughts. As the group descends further, the dungeon around them begins to shift. The smooth, structured pathways they've been following disappear, replaced by rough, jagged terrain that feels strangely alive. The deeper they go, the more it feels like they are finally seeing the dungeon's true nature. The air is thick with an eerie stillness as they carefully navigate the unfamiliar terrain. Breaking the silence, Rina hesitantly asks what floor they're on. Leo, realizing he has lost track, suggests checking Kinto's mapping cufflink later. He then glances at Sherry, noticing she has been oddly quiet. Concerned, he asks if something is wrong. After a moment, she confesses her worries. She isn't sure how much farther they have to go or when they'll finally be able to leave. Her usually bright demeanor is dimmed by the weight of their situation, and Leo realizes the mental strain is catching up to all of them. The thought of having to climb back up the treacherous cliff only makes things worse. Between sniffles, Sherry softly admits that she misses her stuffed penguin, Eddery. Leo pauses. Then an idea sparks in his mind. With a quick snap of his fingers, he conjures two stuffed toys for the girls, embedding them with healing magic. The plush bears, Beery and Mari, radiate warmth and comfort, designed to soothe their owners' hearts. The girls immediately embrace their new companions, their spirits visibly lifting. They thank Leo with heartfelt smiles, making him sigh in relief, glad to have done something to help. But as his gaze shifts, he notices Kento standing still, unusually quiet. A knot forms in his stomach. He moves closer, about to ask if he's all right, but before he can speak, Kento suddenly puts on an exaggerated, goofy act, making the kids burst into laughter. Despite the lighthearted moment, something about his expression unsettles Leo. Deep inside, Kento makes a silent vow. No matter how much the voices claw at his mind, he will not let his growing madness put the children at risk. When they finally reach the 50th floor, the tension becomes unbearable. Leo's heart pounds as they stop in their tracks, overwhelmed by an oppressive presence. From the darkness, a monstrous figure emerges, its glowing eyes locking onto them. The creature's voice drips with malice as it calls them heretics. Kento stiffens. That voice, he has heard it before. It's the same one that has been tormenting him throughout their descent. Realizing the danger, Leo quickly casts an analysis spell, hoping to gauge the monster's level and abilities. But to his shock, nothing appears. It's as if the creature is beyond comprehension. The monster steps closer to Kento, its ominous intent unmistakable. With a chilling certainty, it declares that this time, the outcome will be different. This time, it will claim victory. Before anyone can react, darkness floods the room, swallowing them whole. The girls' terrified screams echo in the void. Then, in an instant, Leo feels an iron grip around his neck. He gasps, clawing at the creature's hand as it lifts him effortlessly. The monster leans in, its voice a whisper filled with knowing malice. Calling Leo a reincarnated replacement, it tightens its grip, watching as the boy struggles for breath. Just as Leo's vision begins to blur, Kento bursts into action. Without hesitation, he taps into his void magic, allowing him to sense the creature's movements even in the suffocating darkness. His voice is firm as he makes a vow to protect the children no matter what. His aura flares with power and he readies himself to take on the monster head on.